Fusion, the International Science Radio Show.
Hello.
Hi Ian, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right. A bit hot in Adelaide right now. I don't know how it's in Sydney, but here it's quite scorching today.
It's been pretty warm here too.
Yeah, yeah. I guess we're going all down the heat wave. Sure. So hi everybody. I'm Natalia Caliani. I'm a wine fermentation scientist at the University of Adelaide, and I basically work with yeast to make tastier wine.
So you're looking into the native yeasts for better tasting wine. So
Mhm.
what does that involve? How
That's
did you get
right.
involved in that?
So I was doing a master's in Western Australia, and I did my thesis in Margaret River, and that's how I started investigating the microbial communities associated with vineyards, both yeast and fungi, and also bacteria. So after I finished with that, I decided to take a step forward, pursue a PhD here at the University of Adelaide, and that's how I got in contact with this tiny little yeast and how we can exploit the native microflora of the grapevines to make tastier wine.
And I guess there's a trade-off that the wine growers have to, well, the grape growers have to look into, which is I guess they're trying to stop funguses that they don't want growing on the grapes while leaving the yeast that will turn them later into wine.
Yeah, that's a bit of a tricky trade-off, to be honest, because obviously when you are treating different fungi, another type of diseases, you might die of them, because it's an environment, like you affect all of the populations. And one of the parts of my PhD was actually looking into that, how different fungicides would affect these native yeast populations, and then when we get them to make the wines, how would that impact on the quality, especially the aromatic quality of those wines. So yeah, it's a bit of a trade-off. Like you need to prioritize what your business sort of wants to achieve, and how to work around it.
And so when they make wine out of the grape juice, are they using just yeast out of the air or off the grapes, or are they deliberately putting in particular strains to get the flavors that they want?
So the commercial wines that we buy in the bottle shop, they've been inoculated with specific strains of, most of the time, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. That's the most used species, and there's more than 200 strains based on what type of flavors we're looking at, what variety we are working with. So yeah, as I said, like 99% of the times they are deliberately inoculated with Saccharomyces. In the last few years, there's more non-Saccharomyces species that are also inoculated because there's more commercially available strains, which is an awesome tool to make all these flavors more intriguing and get richer bouquet and stuff like that.
So how do you determine which of the yeasts would be good candidates to improve the wine?
So I played around with a lot of them, and I ran various screenings in different types of juice, considering different species or different strains of the same species, and then looking at basic quality parameters like ethanol, glycerol, which gives the body to the wine, and then different aromas like specific volatile compounds that we look at. So after I screened them all, I was sort of trying to decipher which was better suited for which variety even. Because like we work with Riesling and with Shiraz, so we had like a contrasting environment and see which ones work better in which. Yeah.
And then you learn to do some stand-up comedy about your work.
Yeah, funny enough, I participated in Pints of Science last year, and then they Chrysanthemum saw me on Pints of Science and invited me to learn how to turn all this science into comedy and how to make it very engaging and entertaining at the same time as sort of teaching people something, I guess. So yeah, that's been an awesome wrap up for my PhD project. Because obviously all along the way we get to talk to different audiences, but turning it into comedy was very, very fun and a bit challenging at the same time, because you need to break your structures and like again play around with different things to make it really engaging. But yeah, it was awesome. It was very cool, a very cool experience.
And did you end up giving one performance or two?
I did too. So I was on Saturday and Monday, and both of them came out completely differently, which was also nice because, like, I guess I could sort of manage that comedy even though the speeches were different. And I still managed to get people to laugh, so that was a big win. So yeah.
So you're saying they were different. Did you change the jokes around, or what happened?
I guess just like even the wordings just came out differently because I was trying to make it as spontaneous as possible, of course. Even though you have a script, you try to be a little bit more spontaneous than that. And then I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, it just came out differently.
And the audiences are sometimes quite different too.
Yeah. In one of the shows, there were many people from uni, like people involved with my project, the director of the training center where I worked at, industry partners, friends. So I guess seeing the audience change automatically changes your brain as well and how you will deliver your message, because you're used to speaking to those people in another environment with another language. Um, so I guess the brain goes, oh, okay. But yeah, no, that was really, really cool. Of course, I was still terrified before the performance, but both came out really nicely, and yeah, it was very much fun.
And have you watched a video of yourself performing?
Not yet. I normally don't do it because I start criticizing myself. And then I'm like, oh, I could have done that differently, or I could have said that in a different way. And there's no point to all of that. I will soon when I have the time to sit and relax and just watch it. But yeah, I haven't yet.
So how do you make yeast funny?
How did I make them funny? I turn them into my little minion. Um, and I'm the despicable master to serve. Um, so that's how I made them funny. Because basically that's what they are. Like they are tiny little creatures, um, giving their lives so we can have a nice drink, either in the shape of wine or beer or a kombucha, or if we don't drink, we'll have a very nice, tasty loaf of bread or pizza. So, yeah, in the process of finding that despicable masters, being humans, um, they develop this skill of fermenting, and in that skill, they make humans' lives much better and more enjoyable. So that's how I turn them into a funny little into funny little creatures.
Fantastic. And did you feel it was there was a large visual component with the slides that you were showing, or was it mainly just what you were saying?
Yeah, like my slides were mostly visual.
Mm.
I try not to have many words in it, not to distract the audience. And yeah, like when I was mentioning one regions of stuff, just get having them there to get everyone on the same page. Um, or if I mention a specific volatile, then I would have what we what we smell it as. Um, so it's not that, let's say we put a bunch of roses inside the wine, we just smell this volatile compound that is very similar to what roses smell, things like that. So I was trying to make it very visual to make it easier to follow as well, because otherwise it can get a bit sciencey with all these reaction biochemical pathways going on. So yeah, they were very visual, I would say.
Mm. And how did you find the rules of comedy that you were learning as a scientist?
Um, I guess like the first when we had the first couple of workshops with Dave and then with Sydney, I was quite concerned about not being able to make it. Because she speaks sort of scientifically so often that that's your comfort zone. And then just breaking that structure and sort of rethinking your whole message and your whole audience obviously was very tricky, and especially because I wasn't born in Australia. I'm Argentinian and I have an accent, and maybe what I feel it's funny wasn't perceived as funny by other people. Like I had all these questions popping in my head, and I'm like, well, I'll do it anyway. We'll see how it goes. Like I didn't let that sort of fear to stop me from doing it, and it turned out okay. So
People laughed in the right
yeah,
places.
yeah, they did.
Fantastic. And
Yeah.
do you think you'll use this going forwards? You'll put some more comedy in your talks?
Yeah, I think so. Because that sometimes scientists can get a bit lost, even the messages they're trying to deliver. Um, and not because it's science, it has to be boring. Like we can be very informative and very scientifically sort of correct and adapted to a highly specialized audience, but we can still be engaging and somehow funny. And I think that having that fun component in it makes great speakers great, because they are not just presenting data, they are trying to get the data to be alive and actually like transmit a very important message, whatever that could be. Um, so yeah, I think that moving forward, I'm gonna try to stick to some of the pieces of advice that they gave us, just to make it more engaging and easier to follow as well.
So, were you writing the science that you wanted to present and then putting in jokes, or were you writing jokes and working out how to put that into your story?
I guess it would be a bit of both. Like, first of all, deciding what's the main message, what do I want the audience to take home with them, and then sort of working backwards onto making the whole speech. But certainly, it has like it will have a bit of both. Like, because obviously your message doesn't change over time unless you keep developing your studies and doing other things. So like the basic building block is still gonna be the same: yeast and
Yes.
fermentation, and then how I make it funny in a, as I said, in a specialized audience. That's gonna be the next like the next bit to work around.
Because I was thinking about, like, if we were to put some of the stand up, either to have you do some of the jokes or to put some of the recording into the podcast, but a lot of it relied on visual humor in the slideshows, so that's a bit
Yeah,
hard to do without extra work, I think.
yeah, 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 that's true. Like, if you look at it, if you weren't there, you cannot really get what was going on. Um, like, I guess one of the parts that made people laugh the most was when I was talking about wine as poetry in a bottle, but then not just a bottle, and then having a silver pillow, meaning a good bag. That certainly made people laugh a lot, because it's something I guess you wouldn't expect. You wouldn't expect it there. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, you need that, like the slide and the visual aid to completely get the joke. And I guess, let's say I take this into a conference. In that environment, I guess it would be easier because you have your slides to help you deliver that message.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I went through the training myself last year, and
Oh,
yes, and when I went to look
mm-hmm.
at possibly putting it into my podcast, of course, it turns out it's very visual, and so I'd have to rewrite a lot of the jokes to fit things in so that people don't need to see
Oh,
the slides.
yeah, the slide.
I
Yeah,
think it can
okay,
be
there you
done,
go.
but it's different. It's a whole other thing to do it just for audio.
Just for audio, yeah. Yeah, because you need to get your audience to think, sort of imagine it in some
Exactly.
way.
So you can't
Like, it's
surprise
not.
them with a picture.
Yeah, no, you can't. No,
So it's a very
no.
different thing. Um,
Mm.
is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about to explain a bit more about the yeast or anything else?
Um, Not really.
Have we covered it?
Um,
Do you want to make any sort of final statements?
um, I guess I could thank you and your audience for the time, but also all the funding and all of that. Because they appreciate that very much. So I'm just gonna sort of wrap it up and say good night, everyone, or good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Ian, for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Natalia. It's been really
Um,
interesting, and I hope you look at doing some more comedy.
yeah, why not? It is. I started now, so I need to keep it moving.
That's it.
Study science, because you will find in the study of science a richer, more rewarding life.